Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive into game topics. You're diving into the world of The Legend of Zelda this time. A legendary series, right? We're going to unpack what makes these games so captivating. From those classic 2D adventures to the sprawling 3D landscapes we know and love today.
Let's talk about world building. Zelda games are renowned for creating these immersive, living worlds.
Absolutely. Take Breath of the Wild, for example. The way the environment tells the story of Hyrule's past is simply masterful. You're not just exploring a beautiful landscape. You're piecing together a history through ruined structures, environmental details, and even the placement of enemies.
It's like you're an archaeologist uncovering lost secrets, except with way more bokoblins.
Yeah.
And that interconnected world design, it reminds me of Dark Souls in a way. That sense of non-linear exploration where you're rewarded for venturing off the beaten path, it's definitely a shared strength.
Yeah, it's about that feeling of agency, being able to choose your own path and make your own discoveries. And speaking of agency, let's talk about how Zelda games masterfully weave that into their storytelling and character development. Okay, so Link doesn't exactly have the most verbose personality, right? But his growth throughout the games, however subtle, actually enhances our sense of control as players. We're not just following a set path. We're guiding Link's development through our choices and actions.
Exactly. Think about how you acquire new items and abilities in Zelda games. Each new tool changes how you interact with the world, opening up new possibilities for exploration and combat. It's a form of player agency that's deeply integrated into the gameplay loop.
Yeah, it's like that aha moment when you finally get the hook shot and realize you could reach areas you couldn't before. Suddenly, the world feels bigger and your options feel limitless. And then there's the emotional impact of these games. I mean, Zelda games have a way of pulling at your heartstrings, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about saving the princess. It's about the relationships you form along the way, the characters you meet, and the sacrifices made. Even without extensive dialogue, Zelda games create moments of genuine emotional resonance.
Yeah, it's like that feeling of triumph when you finally defeat Ganon, knowing you've saved Hyrule and all its inhabitants. But it's also those quieter moments like reuniting with Epona in Ocarina of Time that really stick with you.
Those moments highlight how Zelda games leverage subtle visual storytelling and music to evoke powerful emotions. It's not always about grand gestures, it's about the smaller details that build a connection between the player and the world.
Okay, so we've talked about world building, character development, and emotional storytelling. Now, how did this series make that leap from the top-down 2D world to the immersive 3D experiences we see today? That must have been a huge challenge.
It was a monumental shift, no doubt, but to really appreciate the transition, we need to look back at a game that bridged the gap between the two styles. Link's Awakening, released on the Game Boy, was a fascinating experiment.
Right, Link's Awakening had that classic 2D Zelda feel, but you could tell they were already playing with perspective and depth in a way that foreshadowed the 3D games.
Exactly. They were experimenting with visual cues and level design elements that would later be fully realized in Ocarina of Time. Think about how the game used layered backgrounds and forced perspectives to create a sense of depth. These were early hints of what was to come.
It's like they were dipping their toes into the 3D pool before taking the full plunge. So how did they successfully translate that 2D exploration and combat into a 3D space? I mean, Ocarina of Time completely changed the game literally and figuratively.
Ocarina of Time was revolutionary in many ways, but one of its most significant contributions was how it tackled the camera. It wasn't just a static viewpoint, it became an active participant in the experience.
You mean like how the camera would dynamically frame those epic moments, or how it would zoom in to highlight important details?
Precisely. The camera became a storytelling tool, guiding the player's eye and enhancing the emotional impact of key scenes. This was a huge step forward for 3D game design.
And then there's the combat. Sword fighting in Ocarina of Time wasn't just about swinging wildly. It was about precision timing and using Z-targeting to lock onto enemies. That was a game changer.
Absolutely. The introduction of Z-targeting revolutionized 3D combat, giving players more control and making battles feel more strategic and engaging. It set a new standard for action-adventure games and influenced countless titles that followed.
Speaking of influence, it's hard to overstate the impact Ocarina of Time had on the gaming landscape. It wasn't just a great Zelda game. It was a landmark achievement in 3D game design.
It really was. It set a new benchmark for what was possible in a 3D world and proved that Nintendo could successfully translate their iconic franchises into a new dimension.
It's amazing how they managed to retain that classic Zelda feel while pushing the boundaries of what a video game could be.
That's the genius of Nintendo, isn't it? They're masters of innovation while staying true to their core principles. But beyond the technical advancements, Ocarina of Time also took Zelda's storytelling to new heights. It was the first game in the series to fully embrace a more cinematic approach.
You mean with the cutscenes and the more complex narrative?
Exactly. Ocarina of Time felt more like an interactive epic than its predecessors. The story was richer, the characters were more fleshed out, and the world felt more alive than ever before.
And the music. Oh man, the music in Ocarina of Time was on another level. It wasn't just background noise. It was an integral part of the experience, heightening the emotional impact of every scene.
Yeah, the music became a character in its own right, conveying emotions, setting the mood, and even foreshadowing events. It's a testament to the power of music in video game storytelling.
It's funny, because for all the innovation and technological leaps forward, Zelda never lost sight of its core essence. It's still about exploration, discovery, and that sense of childlike wonder.
That's the heart of the series, isn't it? That sense of adventure, of uncovering secrets, of overcoming challenges, and ultimately of experiencing a world that feels magical and alive.
It's like they found the perfect formula for captivating players and keeping them coming back for more generation after generation.
They did. And to understand that formula, we need to delve deeper into the psychology behind Zelda's design. How do these games create such a compelling sense of engagement and reward?
That's a great question. It's like they understand exactly how our brains work and how to tap into our innate desire for exploration and discovery.
They do. And one of the keys to that understanding is how Zelda games utilize feedback and rewards.
You mean like those subtle visual cues that hint at hidden secrets, or that satisfying chime when you solve a tricky puzzle?
Exactly. These small details are carefully crafted to keep players engaged and motivated. It's about providing just enough guidance without holding their hand, encouraging them to explore and experiment.
It's about that perfect balance of challenge and reward, right? You want to feel like you're accomplishing something meaningful, but you don't want it to feel impossible.
Precisely. Zelda games excel at creating a difficulty curve that gradually introduces new mechanics and challenges, always pushing the player to learn and grow without overwhelming them.
Yeah, it's like they know exactly when to give you a little nudge in the right direction and when to let you figure things out on your own.
It's a delicate balance, and one that Zelda games have mastered over the years. But beyond feedback and rewards, there's another key element to Zelda's success: understanding player psychology.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by player psychology?
Well, it's about understanding how players think, how they learn, and how they react to different stimuli. Zelda games are designed to tap into our innate desires and motivations, creating an experience that feels both challenging and rewarding.
So it's like they're playing with our brains a little bit.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
But it's all in the service of creating a more engaging and immersive experience. For example, Zelda games often utilize something called variable ratio rewards, a psychological principle that keeps us hooked.
I've heard of that. It's like those slot machines in casinos, right?
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to win, so you keep playing.
Exactly. In Zelda, those variable ratio rewards might be hidden treasure chests, rare items, or even just the satisfaction of solving a particularly challenging puzzle. These unpredictable rewards keep us exploring and coming back for more.
It's like they're dangling a carrot in front of us, but in the best way possible. It keeps the experience fresh and exciting.
Precisely. And then there's the concept of loss aversion, another psychological principle that Zelda games leverage effectively.
Loss aversion, that sounds a bit ominous.
It's the idea that we feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. In Zelda, this is reflected in how the games handle death.
So you're saying that dying in a Zelda game feels more impactful because we're wired to avoid loss?
Exactly. Even though you usually don't lose much progress when you die, the experience is framed as a setback, a loss of something you've achieved.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like they're tapping into our primal instincts to create a more engaging experience. It's amazing how much thought and strategy goes into designing these seemingly simple games.
It's a testament to the skill and artistry of the developers. They're not just creating games, they're crafting experiences that resonate with us on a fundamental level.
And that's what makes Zelda so special, right? It's a series that manages to be both innovative and timeless, constantly evolving while staying true to its core values.
Absolutely. And that's why we keep coming back for more generation after generation. The Legend of Zelda is more than just a series of video games. It's a cultural phenomenon that has captured our imaginations and inspired countless players around the world. It's incredible to think how a series that started with 8-bit pixels on the NES has evolved into these sprawling, breathtaking worlds we see today. And it all comes back to that careful balance of innovation and respect for the core experience.
Right. And it's not just about the visuals, is it? It's about how the games make you feel.
Yeah.
Those little details like the sound of Link's footsteps changing on different surfaces or the way the music swells when you enter a new area. It all adds to the immersion.
Absolutely. These subtle audio cues play a huge role in creating a believable and engaging world. They're like little rewards in themselves, reinforcing the player's actions and making them feel more connected to the environment.
Yeah. It's like they're whispering secrets in your ear, guiding you along the way. And speaking of guidance, one thing Zelda games do incredibly well is provide just the right amount of direction without feeling too hand-holdy. You always feel like you're making your own discoveries, even when the game is subtly nudging you in the right direction.
That's a great point. They achieve this through clever level design and environmental storytelling. Think
Hmm.
about how the world itself often provides clues and hints. A broken bridge might suggest you need to find a hookshot, or a patch of soft soil might indicate a hidden treasure.
It's like they're speaking to you in a secret language, using the environment itself to communicate. You're not just following a quest marker on a map, you're deciphering the world's subtle cues. And that makes those aha moments all the more satisfying.
Yeah, it's that sense of discovery, of piecing together the puzzle that makes Zelda so rewarding. And it ties back to what we discussed earlier about player psychology. Zelda games tap into our innate curiosity and desire to solve problems.
Right. It's like they're scratching that itch in our brains that loves to figure things out.
Mm.
But it's not just about puzzles and exploration, is it? There's also that element of challenge and mastery.
Absolutely. Zelda games are known for their challenging dungeons and bosses, but the brilliance lies in how they balance that difficulty with a sense of fairness and accomplishment. You never feel like you're being cheated. You always feel like victory is within your grasp if you can just master the mechanics and strategies.
Yeah, it's that feeling of, I can do this,
Yeah.
even when you're facing down a giant fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you coming back for more.
Exactly. It's that perfect blend of challenge and reward. The games are difficult enough to engage you, but not so difficult that they become frustrating.
Speaking of difficulty, let's circle back to the transition from 2D to 3D. One area where that shift presented a significant challenge was in combat. How did they manage to translate that classic Zelda combat feel into a 3D space?
That's a great question. And it's something that Ocarina of Time addressed in a truly innovative way. Remember Z-targeting?
Of course, it was revolutionary. Suddenly you could lock onto enemies, strafe around them, and execute precise attacks. It completely changed the way 3D combat worked.
Exactly. Z-targeting was a stroke of genius. It solved a fundamental problem of 3D combat, the difficulty of aiming and targeting enemies in a three-dimensional space. But it wasn't just about convenience. It added a whole new layer of strategy and skill to the combat.
Right, you couldn't just button mash your way to victory anymore. You had to think about positioning, timing, and enemy weaknesses. It felt much more deliberate and engaging.
And it paved the way for the more action-oriented combat we see in later Zelda games like Breath of the Wild, where player movement and timing are even more crucial.
Speaking of Breath of the Wild, it's amazing to think how far the series has come. From those top-down 2D adventures to the sprawling open world of Hyrule, it's been an incredible journey.
It truly has. But even with all the advancements and innovations, Zelda has never lost sight of what makes it special. That sense of adventure, that feeling of discovery, that connection to a world that feels both magical and familiar.
And that's why we keep coming back for more, right? It's like stepping back into a childhood dream, rediscovering the joy of exploration and the thrill of adventure.
Exactly. The Legend of Zelda is more than just a video game series. It's a portal to another world, a world where anything is possible and where we can all be heroes.
And that's a pretty powerful thing, wouldn't you say?
It is, and it's something that few other video game franchises have managed to achieve with such consistency and grace.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Zelda, what are some key takeaways we can glean from this discussion? What makes this series so enduring and impactful?
I think there are several key elements at play. First, there's the masterful blend of classic game design principles and innovative ideas. Zelda games respect the foundations of adventure and exploration, while constantly pushing boundaries and trying new things.
Right, they're not afraid to experiment and take risks, but they always do so in a way that feels true to the core essence of the series.
Absolutely. And then there's the deep understanding of player psychology. Zelda games are designed to tap into our innate desires for discovery, mastery, and reward, creating an experience that's both engaging and emotionally resonant.
It's like they know exactly how to push our buttons in the best way possible.
They do. And finally, there's the intangible magic of the series. That sense of wonder, of adventure, of stepping into a world that feels both familiar and extraordinary.
It's that feeling of being a kid again, exploring a world full of secrets and possibilities.
Exactly. And that's something that transcends generations, that speaks to something deep within us all.
It's the power of myth and legend, brought to life in a way that only video games can achieve.
And that's why The Legend of Zelda will continue to captivate and inspire players for years to come.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think about how much thought goes into crafting these experiences.
Yeah.
We've talked about the mechanics, the storytelling, the psychology. And it's like they've thought of everything to create something truly special.
Mm-hmm. It's a real testament to the developers, dedication and artistry. I mean, they're not just making games, they're crafting worlds that pull you in and make you feel like you're a part of something bigger.
Yeah, and that's what makes Zelda so much more than just entertainment, right? It's an art form, a way of expressing ideas and emotions that goes beyond language.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful ways Zelda achieves this is through its use of symbolism and archetypes.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about the recurring motifs throughout the series. The Triforce, the Master Sword, the hero's journey. These symbols tap into universal themes and narratives that resonate deeply with us on a subconscious level.
It's like they're speaking to something primal within us, something that transcends culture and language.
Exactly. And that's why Zelda feels so timeless and universal. It's drawing on these archetypal stories that have been passed down through generations. Stories about courage, sacrifice, and the battle between good and evil.
Like they've cracked the code of human storytelling,
Yeah.
distilling these ancient narratives into a form that's both engaging and accessible.
They have, and they do it with such elegance and finesse. It's not just about hitting you over the head with these themes, it's about weaving them subtly into the gameplay, the world building, the
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, it's like they're planting seeds in our minds that grow and blossom over time.
Yeah.
We may not even realize it at first, but these stories are shaping our understanding of the world and ourselves.
That's the power of great storytelling, isn't it? It stays with us long after we finish the experience, prompting us to reflect and reevaluate our own perspectives.
And that's something Zelda does masterfully. It's not just about escaping into another world. It's about bringing those lessons and insights back with us into our own lives.
Exactly. Zelda games encourage us to be brave, to be resourceful, to never give up hope, even in the face of overwhelming odds.
Yeah, it's about finding that hero within ourselves, that spark of courage and determination that allows us to overcome any challenge. And, it's interesting to think about how the series itself has evolved over time, mirroring that journey of growth and transformation.
You're right. From those early 2D adventures to the vast open world of Breath of the Wild, Zelda has constantly pushed boundaries and reinvented itself while staying true to its core values.
It's a testament to the creative vision of the developers, their willingness to experiment and take risks, and their deep respect for the legacy of the series.
Absolutely. And that's why Zelda continues to be relevant and impactful today. It's a series that's not afraid to grow and change, to embrace new ideas and technologies, while never losing sight of what makes it special.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that even the most beloved and iconic franchises can continue to evolve and surprise us as long as they stay true to their heart and soul.
And that's a lesson we can all apply to our own lives, isn't it? To embrace change, to never stop learning and growing while always staying connected to our core values and passions.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into The Legend of Zelda, is there a final thought you want to leave our listener with?
Well, just think about how The Legend of Zelda has impacted you personally. What lessons have you learned from these games? How have they shaped your view of the world or yourself? And how might you carry those insights forward into the future?
That's a great question to ponder. It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of Zelda with you. Thanks for sharing your insights and expertise.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. There's always more to discover more, to learn more, to experience. Keep exploring, keep playing, and keep that spirit of adventure alive.